I'm going to skip the debate between Allah, Adam, and Satan, as we have played the Can You Name the Animals game before. It ends with a clever impersonation, however, with Adam playing Mohammad.
Koran 2 verse 39. Those who reject our signs will be inmates of the hell fire and will abide there forever.
Proving that the Koran was as crazy as its God, the book that just invested the better part of 40 verses condemning Jews to hell, telling them that they were deaf, dumb, blind, diseased, and led astray, now says,
Koran 2 verse 40. O children of Israel, remember the favors I bestowed on you. So keep my covenants, so that I fulfill your covenant. Fear me and believe in what I sent down, confirming and verifying the Scripture which you possess already.
This confirms that Islam is irrational. Q cannot verify B if Q condemns and contradicts B. Further, if B is true and Q opposes B, then Q must be false. While an irrational God is a problem for Islam, there is a bigger issue.
Koran 2:41. Be not the first to deny or sell my verses for a small price, and fear me and me alone.
Another translation reads,
Part not with my revelations for a trifling price, getting a small gain by selling my verses.
The Quran just confirmed that Mohammed bought his divine revelation from the Jews. It wasn't handed down. It wasn't deciphered from clanging bells or dictated by Gabriel. It was purchased in a business transaction.
Koran 2 verse 42. Do not mix truth with falsehood, nor conceal the truth when you know.
The truth is, all doctrines based on fear and submission are bad. They are designed to empower the few, so that they might fleece the many. Almost 3,000 years ago, the Jews substituted a powerful and nurturing relationship with Yahweh for a complex and stifling religion. The religion was good for cleric and king, but devastating for the Jewish people, separating them from their land and from God. The Catholic Church did the same thing, elevating rites and rituals above relationship. It was great for cleric and king, but devastating for humankind. Likewise, Islam offers nothing to men but false hope of a twisted paradise. It uses fear to suppress and stupefy the masses, enriching and empowering imams and tyrants alike. Islam, more than any doctrine conceived by man, uses mind-numbing ritual and senseless rites to manipulate and fleece the flock. Islamic prayer is not a conversation with God. It's a performance to be acted out. Islamic worship isn't heartfelt praise. It's mindless, obligatory, and repetitive. The Quran is not to be questioned or understood. It is to be obeyed. The Islamic God is unknown for a reason. He is repulsive. Chairman Mohammed was ordering the Jews to capitulate to him, but they saw right through his act.
Koran 2, verse 43. Perform prayer, pay the zakat tax, bow down and prostrate yourself with our rakiyun, the obedient bowers. You read, recite, and study the Scripture. Why don't you understand?
Why don't you capitulate?
Nay, seek
Islamic prostration.
Prayer. It is indeed hard, heavy, and exacting, except for those who obey in submission.
In other words, become Muslims and subject yourselves to my obligations because I need to control you and I covet your money. Allah, the God who said he turns Jews into swine and apes, claims,
in Koran 2, verse 47, Remember, children of Israel, the favor which I bestowed on you, and made you exalted among the nations of the world, preferring you to men and jinn.
But then,
in verse 59, the
Jewish
transgressors changed and perverted the word from that which had been spoken to them to a word distorted. So we sent a plague upon them from heaven for all their evil doing.
The God of
favors bestowed a plague from heaven. Bukhari, Allah's apostle said, plague was a means of torture sent on the Israelis.
While we differ on plagues being heavenly, bigger questions remain. When, how, and why did the Bible get so distorted that it became the opposite of the Koran? The claim is the crux of Islam, yet no Muslim cleric, prophet, or God ever provided a rational explanation, and without an answer, Islam is a counterfeit, a lousy job of plagiarizing, nothing more. The Septuagint and Dead Sea Scrolls irrefutably prove that the Torah has remained unchanged since at least 250 BC, 1,000 years before the Koran was written. Since Islam claims otherwise, it's a fraud, not a religion. Not only is there a mountain of historical evidence to refute Mohammed's claim, reason alone will suffice. For the Jews to have written Allah, Mohammed, Mecca, the Kaaba, appeasement, Arabic, Islam, tax, jihad, submit, religion, Muslim, and the 5 pillars out of the Torah, and Yahweh, the Messiah, Jerusalem, the Temple, atonement, Hebrew, Judaism, tithe, love, choose, relationship, Jews, and the 10 Commandments in, requires a conspiracy infinitely beyond anything the world has ever known. A total suspension of rational thought is required to believe Allah. And then there is the little problem of motivation. Why would the nation of Israel collectively and comprehensively alter the totality of their scriptures and history in an attempt to foil a con man 1,000 miles away and 1,000 years distant? The dark spirit of Islam has sent a plague from his abode, and it has consumed men's minds. Hopefully there will be enough healthy neurons left for Muslims to make wise choices once they are exorcised from this pestilence.
Koran 2, verse 61. Humiliation and wretchedness were stamped upon the Jews, and they were visited with wrath from Allah. That was because they disbelieved Allah's proofs, signs, and verses, and killed the prophets. They disobeyed and rebelled. Surely those who believe, and Jews, the Nazareans,
those would be Christians,
and the Sabaeans,
those would be Zoroastrians,
whoever believes in Allah and the last day, and whoever does right, shall have his reward with the Lord, and will neither have fear nor regret.
Muslims quote the last part of this verse to the media to demonstrate how tolerant Islam is, yet they must take it out of context. The prior verse says that Allah stamped the Jews with wretchedness and that his wrath was justified. Further, Muslims must mistranslate it too, replacing the name Allah with the word God. The passage actually says, tolerance is only extended if the Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians believe in Allah and become Muslims. Either convert or fear and regret it. 2 verses later, the intolerant Allah is back on the warpath, acting like a racist.
Koran 2, verse 64. But you,
that would be Jews,
went back on your words and were lost losers. You know that you have broken the sanctity of the Sabbath. So we said, become monkeys, despised and hated. We made this punishment an example and a warning for those who fear Allah.
Whether you choose to interpret this as God calling Jews despised apes, or turning them into hated monkeys, it isn't godly. And if the Sabbath was sanctified by Allah, why do Muslims ignore the warning and worship on Friday? The following hadith was designed to answer that question.
Bukhari. The Prophet said, we,
that would be Muslims,
are the last to come, but we will be the foremost. Nations were given the scripture of the book before us, and we were given the holy book after them. Friday is the day about which they differed. So the next day, Saturday, was prescribed for the Jews, and the day after it, Sunday, for the Christians. It is incumbent upon every Muslim to wash his head and body on Friday.
I would suppose that it would be too much to ask the Prophet to explain how a Friday dispute could have arisen between Jews and Christians, considering it was chiseled in stone 12 centuries before the first Christian was born.